Hey, baby, don't be scared. My friends and I will walk you home. Help, is anyone there? I don't know what wire snapped in my head right then, but I desperately needed a place to unleash the day's rage. I glanced around. In the corner, there was half a broken brick. I bent over and picked it up. It felt heavy in my hand. Brick in hand, I charged. What the hell? What the fuck are you doing? Get the hell away from her. The two guys and the woman jumped, their heads whipping around to look at me. The fuck? Who's this drunk asshole? Mind your own damn business. I took another step forward, raising the brick higher. Get lost. You hear me? This girl. She's with me. Now get the hell out of here before I smash your faces in. My name is Leo Finch, and today I was officially branded a card-carrying member of the Losers Club. Not temporarily, either. This felt permanent. It all started with a blind date that afternoon. The matchmaker was my Aunt Carol, who had breathlessly told me the girl was a sweet, down-to-earth person looking to settle down. The reality? The moment we met outside the coffee shop, the girl gave me a head-to-toe scan with the exact same look I used to inspect discount yogurt nearing its expiration day at the grocery store. So, I hear you were your last company for 3 years, and were still just a junior associate? She asked, stirring her mocha without even looking up. Yeah, but the growth potential was... I tried to salvage the situation. What about a house? Renting for now, but I have a plan. And when will that plan become a reality? How much have you saved for a down payment? She cut me off, her questions flying like throwing knives. I could feel sweat beading on my forehead. I'm working on it. She finally looked up and smiled, a smile that sent a chill down my spine. Leo, we're both adults. Our time is valuable. I just don't think we're a good fit. You seem nice, but I'm looking for a partner I can grow with, not. Well, you get it. With that, she grabbed her purse and left. So quickly she didn't even offer to split the bill for the coffee she'd already ordered. I sat there, feeling the eyes of everyone in the cafe on me. This stupid mocha cost $8. If you're not going to drink it, don't order it. I went home, my stomach churning with a toxic cocktail of humiliation and anger. A few new emails were waiting in my inbox. My fingers trembled a little as I clicked them open. Perfect, a hat trick. 3 rejection letters from 3 different companies. The templates were painfully polite. Thank you for your interest. We will keep your resume in our talent pool. We hope to have the opportunity to collaborate in the future. Bullshit. The future? In the future, I'll be eating instant ramen for the rest of my life. My chest felt as tight as the Kennedy Expressway at rush hour. It was suffocating. That night, I ended up at a cheap dive bar, ordering a basket of wings and chugging a beer. The bartender, a grizzled old guy, saw the look on my face and left me alone. Hey man, I slurred after a few beers. You ever have one of those days where if it wasn't for bad luck, you'd have no luck at all? The bartender was sprinkling seasoning on some fries. Nah, not really, he said without looking up. Bad luck doesn't break your teeth, it just gives you a stomachache. What's up, girl, break your heart? Worse. Bombed a date, can't find a job, I sighed. That's small potatoes. Plenty of women out there, plenty of jobs. Here, eat these. Fries are hot. He slid the greasy basket toward me. He wasn't wrong, but the fire in my gut wouldn't go out. I drank alone, losing count of the bottles. My head got heavier, and the world started to blur at the edges. When I went to pay, I could barely get my phone to scan the QR code on the counter. I stumbled my way home, the street lights blooming into hazy halos. I took a shortcut down a back alley where the lights had been broken for months. It was pitch black. I'd only taken a few steps when I heard something up ahead. I squinted. It looked like 2 figures huddled around someone, pulling and shoving. I could hear a woman's voice, sharp with anger and fear. Let go of me. I gave you the money. Get away. My alcohol-soaked brain didn't stop my feet. As I got closer, the scene came into focus. 2 guys were cornering a woman. She looked disheveled, her hair a mess, clutching her purse for dear life. One guy was trying to rip the bag from her hands while the other was laughing, his voice slick and nasty. Hey, baby, don't be scared. My friends and I will walk you home. The woman dodged him, shouting, Help! Is anyone there? That's when something snapped. Maybe it was the liquid courage, or maybe it was just the sheer volume of crap I'd dealt with that day, but I needed a target. Blood rushed to my head. I glanced around. In the corner, there was half a broken brick. I bent over and picked it up. It felt solid, heavy in my hand. Brick in hand, I charged, my own voice sounding alien and slurred as I roared. What the hell? What the fuck are you doing? Get the hell away from her. The two guys and the woman jumped, their heads whipping around to look at me. I must have been a terrifying sight. Face flushed, eyes wide and bloodshot, holding a brick like a weapon. One of the guys froze for a second, then cursed. The fuck? Who's this drunk asshole? Mind your own damn business. I took another step forward, raising the brick higher, my voice even louder, running purely on instinct. Get lost. You hear me? This girl. She's my business, so fuck off before I cave your skulls in. I have no idea where that trashy tough guy line came from. Maybe I'd seen too many cheesy action flicks, and my brain automatically supplied the villain's script at the critical moment. The two guys exchanged a look. Maybe they figured drunk with a weapon was too unpredictable. After a few more muttered curses, they actually let the woman go and hurried away, disappearing into the darkness. I stood there, still holding the brick in a triumphant pose, panting heavily. The woman stared at me, her eyes wide with terror. She shrank back, clutching her purse. A wave of dizziness hit me as the alcohol's delayed punch landed. The world started to spin. I tried to take a step forward to tell her, don't worry, you're safe now. But my foot caught on something. Maybe it was another piece of brick, maybe it was something she dropped, but whatever it was, my balance was gone. Oh, shit. Those were the only two words I managed before I pitched forward, face first into the pavement. The brick I was holding flew out of my hand. My forehead hit the cold, rough concrete with a sickening thud. A sharp pain lanced through my skull, and then everything went black. Right before I lost consciousness, I thought I heard a short, sharp gasp and the rapid click-clack of high heels running away, fading into the distance, and then silence. Hey, kid, wake up. What are you doing sleeping here? Someone was shouting in my ear and shaking my shoulder. So annoying. I was having a great dream where I'd won the lottery and was about to make that blind date girl regret ever meeting me. Leave me alone. I mumbled, try to roll over. A jolt of pain shot through my arm and back. The ground was hard and cold. That woke me up. I cracked my eyes open. The first thing I saw was the wrinkled face of an old man, scowling down at me. The sky was a hazy, pre-dawn gray. I was crumpled in a corner, lying on solid concrete. What the hell? How did I end up sleeping here? You awake? The old man grumbled. Look, kid, I get it, but you can't just pass out on the street. You'll catch a cold, and it's a public nuisance. I scrambled to my feet, my whole body aching. My head felt like it had been used as a soccer ball. My clothes were wrinkled and stained with dirt, and I reeked of stale beer and grime. Sorry, sir, I'm so sorry. I apologized, my brain's still a foggy mess. Last night. How did I get here? How should I know? The man said, looking disgusted. I was on my morning walk and saw you sprawled out. Go home and take a shower. You look like hell. I gave him a weak smile and staggered away. When I reached the main street, I realized where I was. This was the same dark alley I'd used as a shortcut last night. How did I fall asleep here? I rubbed my temples, trying to piece it together. Last night, I was drinking. Then what? I think I got into a fight, and I picked up a brick, and then a total blank. I couldn't remember a thing. This was bad. If my neighbors saw me crawling out of place like this looking like I'd been run over, they'd think the worst. I ducked my head and practically sprinted home. The few people I passed on the street stared. My social life was officially dead. I finally made it to my apartment. The first thing I did was rush to the bathroom and look in a mirror. Good Lord, there was a nasty purple bruise on my forehead with a bit of scraped skin. My hair looked like a bird's nest, and my eyes were shot with red. I looked like a refugee. Damn it, what did I do last night? Get into a brawl? I muttered, splashing cold water on my face to try and wake up. All I could recall were fuzzy fragments, someone shouting for help, me yelling something, and then falling. My head throbbed. I gave up. At least I wasn't dead or in jail. That was a win. I stripped off my filthy clothes, threw them in the washing machine, and took a long, hot shower. It helped, but the hangover was still raging. I was dizzy, and my entire body felt out of sorts. Sleep. The world can end, but first, I sleep, I declared, throwing myself onto my bed and pulling the covers over my head. I don't know how long I was out, but a shrill ringing, like an alarm from hell, jolted me awake. Who the hell is it? I shot up, grabbing my phone. Hello. Who's this? Good morning. Am I speaking with Mr. Leo Finch? This is he. Who's calling? Hello, Mr. Finch. This is the Human Resources Department at Helios Tech Group. Helios Tech. The name sounded vaguely familiar. My brain was still booting up. Oh, what's this about? I'm calling to inform you that after reviewing your application for the executive assistant to the CEO position, we believe you are a strong candidate. We would like to offer you the position. Would you be available to come in tomorrow to complete your onboarding? I was holding the phone, stunned into silence. What? Helios Tech. Assistant to the CEO? Onboarding? That hit me. About 2 weeks ago, during a desperate, scattershot application spree, I had, on a whim, sent my resume to this company. I never expected to hear back. Helios was a big player, and the role wasn't exactly aligned with my career path. But I'd figured, what the hell? I'd sent it and immediately forgotten about it. It had vanished without a trace. And now, they were hiring me? Hello, Mr. Finch? Are you still there? Yes. Yes, I'm here. You said Helios Tech? Assistant to the CEO? Tomorrow? Are you serious? I heard a faint chuckle on the other end. Yes, Mr. Finch, the offer is confirmed. Please come to the front desk of our corporate headquarters, Tower A, at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bring your driver's license, a copy of your resume, and your degree certificate. Further details will be sent to your phone via text message. Okay, great. I'll be there. Thank you. Thank you so much. I stammered, so excited I nearly bit my tongue. You're welcome. We'll see you tomorrow. After she hung up, I was still in a daze. I pinched my thigh hard. Ouch. Yep, not a dream. Finally a job. A wave of relief washed over me. But then I looked in the mirror at the guy with a bruised forehead and crazy hair, then around to my messy shoebox apartment. I slapped my forehead. No. I start tomorrow. I have to get ready. I rushed back to the bathroom, carefully shaved, and tried to tame my rebellious hair. I dug through my closet and found my one and only decent suit, shaking the dust off it. Where's my tie? Where did I put that tie? I muttered, rummaging through drawers. Shoes. I need to polish my shoes. I was a whirlwind of activity, sweating, but ecstatic. The humiliation of the past few days vanished. All I could think about was how I was going to make a great impression, how I was going to kill it at my new job, how I was going to make all those other companies regret rejecting me. As for what happened last night, that bruise on my head, who cared? Making money was what mattered now. I started humming an off-key tune, feeling like my life had just switched from hard mode to easy. The future was bright. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from the HR number. Helios Tech reminder. Mr. Leo Finch, your onboarding is scheduled for tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. Location. I stared at the text, grinning like an idiot, then went back to polishing my shoes with renewed vigor. New life, here I come. 3. The next day, I was up at the crack of dawn, transforming myself into a respectable-looking professional. The suit was a little wrinkled, but it would have to do. I practiced my smile and introduction in the mirror. Hello, I'm Leo Finch, the new assistant. My tone needed to be more humble, so I tried a few different variations. Filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety, I found the impressive office tower, Helios Tech. Stepping inside, I was floored. The lobby was huge and sleek. The woman at the front desk looked like a model. Hi, I'm here for HR for a new hire orientation, I said, trying my best not to look like I'd just fallen off a turnip truck. Name? She asked, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Leo Finch. Finch, like the bird. She checked her system and nodded. Okay, Mr. Finch. Go straight, take a left. It's the third office on your right. The process was smooth. I signed a mountain of paperwork, got a temporary key card, and then the HR woman said, Mr. Finch, your position is executive assistant to the CEO, Ms. Stella Cruz. You'll report directly to her. I'll take you up to her floor now. Assistant to the CEO, working directly with the big boss. I felt like I was walking on air. This was one hell of a starting point. The elevator climbed, and my spirits soared with it. Ding! The doors opened. The atmosphere on this floor was completely different. It was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Everyone moved with a sense of urgency, their voices hushed. The HR woman led me to a spacious open-plan office and pointed to an empty desk. This is your workspace. The CEO is in a meeting right now, so please wait here. Her office is that one over there, she said, gesturing to a heavy, darkwood door in the corner. I thanked her and carefully sat down on my new desk, barely putting any weight on the chair. I glanced around. My new colleagues were all laser-focused on their screens, keyboards clattering. No one had time to spare for the new guy. After about half an hour, the wooden door opened. A few people filed out, their faces grim. The last person to emerge was a woman. My jaw nearly hit the floor. The CEO was so young and unbelievably beautiful, but her expression was as cold as if she'd just stepped out of a freezer. When her eyes swept over me, I instinctively flinched. The HR woman quickly stepped forward. "Ms. Cruz, this is the new assistant, Leo Finch." Ms. Cruz's gaze landed on me. She looked me up and down, her eyes carrying the same critical intensity my aunt uses to inspect pork chops at the butcher. I shot to my feet and plastered on my practiced smile. "Hello, Ms. Cruz. I'm Leo." She gave a curt, emotionless nod. Her words were clipped and fast. "Right, come in. I'll brief you." She turned and walked back in her office. I scurried after her like a nervous puppy. Her office was enormous, big enough to play racquetball in, but impeccably organized. She sat down in her high-backed leather chair and got straight to the point. "Your primary duties are managing my daily schedule, coordinating meetings, screening my emails, filtering my calls, and handling any and all tasks I assign to you. The requirements are simple. Be precise, be efficient, and make zero mistakes. Understand?" "Yes, absolutely." I nodded like a bobblehead. "Coffee. Black. No sugar. No milk. 185 degrees. It must be on my desk every morning when I arrive." "Got it. 185-degree black coffee. All emails are to be sorted by urgency and importance, with key points summarized. On my desk by 9 a.m. every day." "Got it. Sort and summarize. My schedule is planned down to the minute. All appointments must be confirmed 3 times in advance, with sufficient buffer time allocated." Her words came faster and faster, a dizzying stream of demands and corporate jargon. I tried my best to keep up, but my brain was already starting to lag. All I could do was nod and say, MHM. Suddenly, she stopped. "In the CRM system, which module is the fastest for filtering quarterly year-over-year data?" My mind went blank. CCRM. Her brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. "In a SWOT analysis, what are the primary factors to consider for the T?" Sweat started to form on my brow. "Oh, T." I knew the letters, but strung together, they suddenly seemed like a foreign language. She leaned back slightly, her gaze turning even colder. "You don't even know the basics? What kind of background check did HR run?" My face flushed crimson. I'm sorry, Ms. Cruz. My previous industry was a bit different, but I'm a very fast learner. I can get up to speed quickly." She didn't speak, just stared at me, the silence making my skin crawl. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, she spoke again, her tone flat, but every word a tiny icicle. "I don't need apologies. I need results. By the end of the day today, I want you to familiarize yourself with all of the company's main product lines and recent major projects. Write a summary and give it to me. Now get out." "Yes, ma'am." "Right away." Granted a pardon, I practically fled her office, the back of my shirt damp with sweat. 4. Stella Cruz sat behind her massive desk as the door clicked shut, sealing her off from the low hum of the office. Her brow was knitted tightly, her fingers unconsciously clenching the fountain pen in her hand so hard her knuckles turned white. "Leo Finch." She mouthed the name, almost biting down on the words. Her mind was reeling, replaying the blurred, terrifying image from the alley last night. The swaying, drunken man, brandishing a piece of brick, yelling that crude, hateful line that had filled her with both fear and rage. "Get lost. You hear me? This girl, she's my business. So fuck off before I cave your skulls in." It was him. She would never mistake that face. Even today, dressed in a passable suit with his hair combed, his eyes filled with a timid, eager-to-please nervousness, it couldn't hide the face of the thug from last night. How dare he show up here? How dare he apply to be her assistant? What was he planning? Was this a coincidence? Or was it intentional? Did he recognize her? A storm of questions raged in her head. She took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising tide of anger and a sickening sense of violation. His performance just now was quite convincing. Respectful, nervous to the point of stammering, like any other ordinary applicant trying to land a job. Good acting, but the way he looked at her, it seemed like he genuinely didn't recognize her at all. Was he pretending? How could he not? They were so close last night. Stella's thoughts were a tangled mess. She had approved his hiring yesterday, purely because he was the only one on the final list from HR who met the basic qualifications, and the position was urgent. She hadn't even looked closely at the name. Who could have known it would be him? What should she do now? Fire him immediately? On what grounds? For suspected thuggery last night. Where was the proof? And what would people say? The CEO of Helios Tech firing a new employee over a personal and proven grudge? She irritably set down her pen and pressed her fingers to her temples. No, that wouldn't work. It was unprofessional and would only lead to gossip. Then let him stay. The thought surprised even her. Let him stay. Let this man, who might have malicious intent, walk around her office every day. But then, another feeling replaced her frustration. A cold, calculating thought, tinged with a desire for revenge. Fine, since you delivered yourself to my doorstep. Don't blame me for what happens next. On my turf, I have 1,000 ways to make you quit, to make you pay for what you did. You want to work hard? I'll give you the most exhausting, mind-numbing tasks. I'll scrutinize your every mistake. I'll hold you to the most impossible standards. Let's see how long you can keep up the act. Let's see when you finally show your true colors. A cold smile almost touched her lips. Her mood strangely settled, replaced by a chilling sense of anticipation. She picked up her pen again, her gaze falling on the documents awaiting her approval. Her eyes were sharp and focused once more. Leo Finch, is it? We're going to have a lot of fun. 5. I slumped back at my desk, staring blankly at my computer. Product lines? Major projects? A summary? Where was I supposed to even start? No one had even told me how to log into the company's internal network. I discreetly glanced at the guy at the next desk. He seemed friendly enough. Hey man, sorry to bother you. The intranet. The guy didn't even look up from his screen, his fingers a blur as he typed. Log in with your employee ID. Default password is the last 6 digits of your social. You'll need to file a request through the internal portal for full access. Approval takes about 3 days. 3 days. The summary was due by the end of the day. I felt my sanity slipping away. I fumbled my way through, Googling what I could, my eyes glazing over from information overload. In the middle of it all, Stella called me into her office twice. The first time, she asked for the meeting minutes from last week's conference with Syntech. I searched through every email and shared folder and couldn't find a file with that name. Finally, I had to go back and ask her. She shot me a withering look. The project code name is Falcon. Can't you use the search function? The second time, she told me to notify all department heads of a meeting in 10 minutes. I quickly sent out a mass email. 5 minutes later, a direct line buzzed. Leo, she said, her voice dangerously calm. Mr. Liu is on vacation, and Ms. Zhang is on a business trip overseas. Do you not check attendees' availability before sending a meeting invitation? I was speechless, only able to stammer out apologies. The entire day was a blur of me running around like a headless chicken, following her orders. I make a mistake, get chewed out, make another mistake, and get chewed out again. Her words were always brief, cold, and her criticisms were brutally precise. By the afternoon, the sound of her intercom made me physically flinch. Just before closing time, I finally managed to cobble together the summary and handed it to her. She glanced at it, said nothing, but took out a red pen and drew several large circles and question marks across the page before tossing it back at me. Redo it. I want to see something coherent on my desk tomorrow morning. I trudged back to my desk, clutching the condemned document, feeling completely hollowed out. The CEO was gorgeous, but she was terrifying. Why did she seem to have it out for me? I hadn't done anything to offend her, had I? Whatever. A paycheck is a paycheck, I told myself. I sighed, opened my laptop, and resigned myself to a long night of overtime. This executive assistant job was going to kill me. 6. In the days that followed, I learned the true meaning of trial by fire. Stella Cruz, my esteemed boss, was without a doubt the most difficult person I had ever met. I used to think my college professor who failed half the class was a sadist. Compared to her, he was Santa Claus. Every morning, I arrived half an hour early, my first task being to make her coffee. 185 degrees. How was I supposed to know the exact temperature? I had to guess, letting boiling water cool for a bit before adding a splash of cold. I'd carry it into her office with trembling hands. Sometimes she'd take a sip and say nothing, and I'd breathe a sigh of relief. Other times, her brow would furrow. She'd set the cup down and say flatly, "Make it again." I have to scurry back to the kitchen and start over. Sorting her emails was a nightmare. I had to differentiate between brown-nosing, genuine emergencies, and other departments trying to pass the buck. The summaries had to be perfect. One time, I marked a vendor's promotional event as urgent. She called me in and pointed at the screen. "Leo, do I look like I have time to attend a product launch party?" I broke into a cold sweat. Her schedule was my Bible. I had to track it to the minute. Once, she had a meeting with a client. I had confirmed the time 3 times the day before, and their assistant had assured me everything was set. But that morning, they rescheduled last minute. I didn't find out right away. She walked over to my desk and tapped it with her finger. "Leo, the client rescheduled." Why wasn't I notified? Do I need to teach you how to use a telephone? I was busy compiling materials for another meeting and replied without thinking. "1 second, Ms. Cruz, I'll check on it right now." I regretted the words the moment they left my mouth. I had told the CEO to wait. She didn't explode. She just stood there, looking at me with an icy stare. I felt the temperature around my desk drop by 20 degrees. The heads of my nearby colleagues ducked even lower. "Leo," she said, her voice as flat as a ruler. "Do I need to remind you who signs your paychecks?" I immediately wilted. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Cruz. I'll call them right now." Immediately. What bothered me most was that I felt like she was specifically targeting me. It wasn't my imagination. If someone else made the same mistake, they might get a simple correction. If I did it, I got a hailstorm of ice-cold sarcasm. The tasks she gave me were always a degree harder than anyone else's, the standards a notch higher. If I showed the slightest hesitation or confusion, her gaze could freeze me solid, as if to say, "This is so simple. Are you an idiot?" I vented quietly to my desk mate, a guy named Kevin. "Kev, is she like this with everyone?" Kevin pushed up his glasses, looked around, and lowered his voice. "She's tough on everyone, man. We're all scared of her. But she does seem to have a special interest in you." He patted my shoulder sympathetically. "Hang in there, buddy. Did you do something to piss her off before you even started?" That's what was so unfair. I didn't even know who she was before I got here. How could I have possibly offended her? Was it because I oversold myself in the interview? That seemed like a petty reason to torture someone. One day, she had me pick up her dry cleaning. Was that really an assistant's job? Fine, you're the boss. I ran the errand, brought the suit back, and carefully hung it in her office closet. That afternoon, after she returned from a client meeting, she called me in and pointed to the sleeve of the blazer. "Look at this. The press mark is wrong. Didn't you check it when you picked it up?" I leaned in. Where was it wrong? It looked perfectly flat to me. "Take it back," were her only 2 words. I couldn't help but mutter, "But it looks fine. Is it really necessary?" She looked up at me, her eyes sharp. "Leo, are you questioning my judgment? Or do you believe my time is so worthless it can be wasted on flawed items?" "No, not at all. I'll take it back right now." I grabbed the suit and bolted. As I left, I cursed under my breath. Uptight, perfectionist, psycho. But no matter how much I complained internally, I still had to do the work. To avoid being verbally eviscerated, I started working like a madman. I kept a small notebook to jot down all the corporate jargon she used, looking it up at night. I stayed late to teach myself the software she used. I experimented with over a dozen cups of coffee, practically using a thermometer to get the temperature right. Slowly, very slowly, things seemed to get a tiny bit better. At least, she stopped making me remake her coffee as often, and there were fewer red circles on my email summaries. She was still cold, and her words could still freeze hell over, but at least, well, my survival rate seemed to have improved slightly. One time, she assigned me a complex data compilation for a major project due first thing the next morning. I stayed up half the night, researching, building spreadsheets, and cross-referencing data until my eyes burned. The next day, I handed it in, sporting 2 giant dark circles under my eyes. She was already there. She flipped through the report without speaking. My stomach was in knots, bracing for the criticism. When she finished, she closed the folder, set it aside, and said, "Your efficiency is low, but the data is accurate. Next time, prepare in advance." That was it. No criticism. She didn't tear me a new one. I couldn't believe my ears. I almost blurted out, "Thank you, Your Majesty." "You can go now," she said, already focused on the next document. I walked out of her office in a daze, feeling like I just won the lottery. Kevin saw my stupid grin. "What's up? Did Miss Cruz actually praise you?" "Not exactly, but she didn't yell at me, and she said the data was accurate." I was so excited I almost high-fived him. Kevin just looked at me, deadpan. "Dude, you've set the bar really, really low." Okay, fine. Maybe I was developing a case of Stockholm Syndrome. But that tiny sliver of progress gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, if I worked hard enough and was careful enough, I could survive working for this Ice Queen. Though I still had no idea why she seemed to despise me so much. Every time her beautiful, cold eyes swept over me, I felt a chill run down my spine, like I owed her $1 million. Whatever. Back to work. After what felt like an eternity of sleepless nights, the big project, the one that would determine whether the company ate steak or ramen for the next 6 months, was finally signed. A collective sigh of relief went through the entire department, maybe even the whole company. The celebration dinner was held in a private room at a fancy hotel. As the CEO's assistant, my attendance was mandatory. My main job for the evening was to be Stella's human shield against alcohol. Stella was the undeniable star of the night. Clients and our own company's executives took turns toasting her. The praise was thick and syrupy. Ms. Cruz, a true prodigy to a successful partnership, the sky's the limit. At first, she maintained her composure, sipping politely from a glass of red wine. But as the night wore on, the toasts became more insistent, with whiskey and tequila shots making an appearance. I watched as her eyes started to lose focus and her cheeks flushed an unnatural shade of red. Standing just behind her, I was a nervous wreck, but I couldn't let it show. Every time someone approached to offer a toast, I would try to subtly interject, either taking over the conversation to thank them or literally taking the glass from her and downing what was left. After a few rounds of this, my own stomach was on fire and my head was starting to spin. The client's project manager, a Mr. Wallace, was a real piece of work, pot-bellied, balding, with beady eyes that kept darting over Stella's body. He sidled up with another shot of whiskey, his face gleaming with a greasy smile. "Miss Cruz, one more toast. I'm just so impressed. A true Wonder Woman." Stella was clearly at her limit. She waved a hand dismissively, her words slurring. "Mr. Wallace, I really can't drink anymore." "Oh, come on, you have to drink this one. It's disrespectful not to." Wallace insisted, leaning in closer. His hand moved as if to pat her shoulder, but was clearly aiming for her back. Seeing that, something inside me snapped. This wasn't a toast, this was harassment. I don't know where the courage came from, but I stepped between them in a single motion, a fake smile plastered on my face as I took the glass from Wallace's hand. Mr. Wallace, on behalf of Ms. Cruz, I have to toast you. Thank you for all your support on this project. You were instrumental. I'll drink to that." Without waiting for his reaction, I tilted my head back and poured the fiery liquid down my throat. It burned all the way down to my stomach. Wallace was taken aback, clearly not expecting a lowly assistant to intervene. His face soured. "You." I immediately grabbed the bottle and refilled his glass, my words flowing like honey. "Mr. Wallace, let me toast you again. We'll be counting on your guidance in the future. To you." Another shot down. I didn't give him a chance to speak, launching into a detailed discussion about the project's technical parameters and market projections, unleashing all the knowledge I'd crammed over the past few weeks. He was so stunned he could only blink. My colleagues, sensing the situation, swarmed in to run interference, offering their own toasts and effectively boxing Wallace in. I used the opportunity to check on Stella. She was slumped in her chair, her eyes barely open, her head lolling. She was completely out of it. Finally, the dinner ended. People began to leave in a noisy, cheerful exodus. I looked at the unconscious form of my boss and felt a massive headache coming on. What was I supposed to do now? I asked a female colleague nearby, "Do you know where Miss Cruz lives? I need to get her home." She shook her head. "No idea. She's never mentioned it." I gently shook Stella's shoulder. "Miss Cruz, Ms. Cruz, where do you live? I'll take you home. She blearily opened her eyes, looked at me, and muttered, Get lost. You're annoying. Before closing them again. Well then, so much for that. I took out her phone, hoping to find an address in her contacts or Uber history, but it was locked with a passcode. Meanwhile, Mr. Wallace was still lingering by the door, his eyes darting in our direction. I knew I had to get her out of there. Gritting my teeth, I looped Stella's arm over my shoulder and hoisted her up. She was dead weight, her body limp against mine. Her head rested on my shoulder, her breath a heavy wave of alcohol. My own legs were shaky, but I managed to steer her out of the hotel. The cold night air sobered me up a little. Call an Uber. To where? I still didn't have an address. Ask her. In her current state? Not a chance. I checked my own nearly empty wallet. All the hotels in this area were 5-star, and one night would probably cost me half a month's salary. Damn it. I cursed under my breath. Looking around, I saw a slightly less intimidating chain hotel across the street. That'll have to do, I decided, half dragging her across the road. The receptionist gave me a strange look as I supported the drunk woman. A room, please, I panted. Certainly, sir. What kind of room? A standard with 2 beds or a king? The cheapest one you have, just for one night. I said quickly. Okay, 1 king room is $268 for the night. I'll need to see both of your IDs, please. I pulled out my driver's license, then rummaged through Stella's purse, finally finding her wallet and handing her ID to the receptionist. The woman's look grew even more suspicious as she glanced between the 2 IDs and the comatose Stella. My face burned with embarrassment as I completed the check-in. Card key in hand, I half-carried, half-dragged Stella into the elevator and down the hall to our room. I managed to get her onto the bed, where she immediately passed out. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the carpet, panting like a dog. After a few minutes of rest, she rolled over, mumbling, Water, thirsty. Resigned to my fate, I got up, found a bottle of water, opened it, and carefully lifted her head to help her take a few sips. After the water, she lay back down, but a few seconds later, she started pulling at her clothes. Hot, so hot. I scrambled to adjust the air conditioning. As soon as I did, she started groaning. Gonna be sick. My heart leaped into my throat. I practically dove across the room to haul her into the bathroom. Luckily, she only dry heaved a few times and didn't actually throw up. After a few more rounds of this, I was completely drained. This wasn't a CEO. She was a giant, helpless baby. I collapsed into a chair by the bed, looking at her sleeping form. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup was smudged, a world away from the immaculate, ice-cold woman I saw every day. Suddenly, a terrifying thought struck me. It was the middle of the night. I was in a hotel room with my drunk, unconscious female boss. If she woke up tomorrow with no memory of what happened and accused me of taking advantage of her, I'd be screwed. I could never prove my innocence. In this day and age, my life would be over. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I had to protect myself. I needed proof. I took out my phone, opened the camera app, and switched to video. I found an angle on a nightstand that captured both her on the bed and most of the room. I propped it up and hit record. Only then did I feel a little better. Okay, I have an alibi. I sat back down in the chair, as far from the bed as possible, making sure I was always in the frame. The exhaustion and the alcohol I'd consumed earlier finally caught up with me. My eyelids grew heavy. I could hear her occasionally mumbling in her sleep. So annoying. The data's wrong. Why would they say that about me? Mango pudding. Jerks. All of them, get away. Fighting to stay awake, I listened to her fragmented sleep talk, thinking to myself, she's so different when she's drunk. And what's with the mango pudding? I have no idea how I fell asleep in that chair, but when I woke up, my neck was screaming in protest. A sliver of sunlight pierced through a gap in the curtains, stabbing in my eyes. Blinking, I instinctively reached for my phone on the nightstand. Thank God, it was still recording, though the battery was about to die. I quickly stopped the recording and saved the precious evidence. When I turned my head, I nearly had a heart attack. Stella was sitting up in bed, staring at me. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of shock, confusion, and a fury that was rapidly boiling to the surface. Her hair was even more of a mess, and her smudged makeup made her look almost comical, but her intimidating aura was fully intact. "Leo," she exclaimed, her voice hoarse but high-pitched. "Why are you here? Where are we? What did you do to me?" She frantically threw back the covers to inspect herself. Though her clothes were merely wrinkled, her expression was one of pure horror, as if she expected the worst. I leaped out of the chair, putting distance between us and holding my hands up in surrender. Miss Cruz, please, don't misunderstand. Nothing happened. I swear, you were drunk last night and I didn't know where you lived, so I had to bring you to a hotel." A hotel. Her voice grew shriller as she took in her surroundings, her face turning pale. "You brought me to a hotel? You?" Seeing she was on the verge of a meltdown, I quickly pulled out my phone, fumbled to find the video, and hit play, turning the screen towards her. "Miss Cruz, look. I recorded everything. The whole night. I was afraid this would happen. I just sat in that chair. I didn't do a thing. I swear." My own voice, tinny and anxious, emanated from the phone's speaker. "Miss Cruz, do you want some water?" Okay, don't move. I'll get it." I turned the AC down. "Are you going to be sick?" "Oh, man." On the screen, I looked like a bumbling idiot, running back and forth while she lay on the bed, alternately demanding water, complaining about the heat, and muttering in her sleep. Stella's eyes were glued to the screen, her expression shifting from rage to astonishment, then to disbelief. Finally, her entire face, from her neck to the tips of her ears, turned a violent shade of crimson. The video just happened to reach the part where she was mumbling indistinctly. "Mango pudding. I want some. If you don't get it, I'll cut your bonus." She lunged forward as if to snatch the phone, her voice cracking. "Delete it. Delete that right now." I quickly pulled the phone back, clutching it to my chest like a holy relic. "I can't delete this. This is my proof of innocence." She sat on the edge of the bed, her chest heaving, looking like she was about to either explode or die of humiliation. She had probably never been this embarrassed in her entire life. She grabbed a pillow, smashed it over her face, and let out a muffled, desperate groan. After a long moment, she lowered the pillow. Her face was still beet red, but she was trying to force her expression back into its usual icy mask, with limited success. She took a deep breath and stared at me, her voice low and tight, each word squeezed out from between her teeth. "Leo, I am warning you. What happened last night, in this video, you're not to mention a single word of it to anyone. Ever. Or else you'll cut my bonus, fire me, and make sure I never work in the city again," I finished for her. "Miss Cruz, I've heard it before. Don't worry, my lips are sealed." I paused, remembering something far more important. I rubbed my hands together and shuffled a little closer. Miss Cruz, could we maybe discuss something?" She eyed me warily. "What do you want now?" "Well, about the hotel bill." I pulled the crumpled receipt from my pocket and held it out tentatively. "You see, last night was an emergency in this. Can I maybe get this reimbursed? I haven't gotten my first paycheck yet, and I'm a little short on cash." Stella's eyes widened again, as if she'd just heard the most absurd thing in the world. She stared at the receipt, then at my earnest face, and for a second, she looked completely frozen. She had probably never, in her entire life, had a subordinate ask her to reimburse a hotel bill under these circumstances. She snatched the receipt from my hand, crumpled it into a tight ball, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Fine, I'll reimburse you now. Immediately. Get out of my sight. Get out." "Yes, ma'am." "Thank you, Miss Cruz. You're so understanding," I said, feeling like I'd just been granted a stay of execution. I backed away, bowing. "You get some rest. I'll head back to the office. I can postpone your morning meetings until this afternoon." "Get out," she shrieked, grabbing the other pillow and hurling it at me. I dodged it, grabbed my jacket, and fled the room, gently pulling the door shut behind me. The door clicked shut. The tension in Stella's body instantly evaporated, replaced by a tidal wave of shame and mortification that threatened to drown her. She dove back onto the bed, burying her face in a pillow and letting out a muffled, agonized cry that was half sob, half scream. Oh my God, that was so humiliating. The image of herself in that video played on a loop in her mind, babbling nonsense, cuddling a pillow, demanding mango pudding. Was that really her? The composed, intimidating CEO whose glare could stop employees in their tracks. She had never, ever been so out of control. So pathetic. And he had seen it all. He had recorded it. Leo Finch, the man she had been convinced was a lowlife, a thug, a predator. And yet, the man in the video. Stella shifted the pillow, revealing her flushed, burning cheeks. Her gaze drifted toward the door, her expression complicated. The man in the video, though clumsy and clearly terrified, had been taking care of her, getting her water, adjusting the temperature, anxiously asking if she was going to be sick, even foolishly documenting his own innocence for the camera. Especially when she contrasted his behavior with the truly sleazy man from the dinner party, and then with his timid but determined request for reimbursement this morning. Could I have been wrong about him? The thought surfaced unbidden. That night in the alley, when he'd yelled that awful thing. Was it possible he was just trying to scare those muggers away? And in her fear and anger, she had immediately branded him as one of them. A tiny, unfamiliar pang of guilt mixed with the overwhelming embarrassment and a lingering, stubborn suspicion, tying her stomach in knots. She ran her hands through her hair in frustration. No, even if his intentions that night were good, why did he pretend not to recognize her? What was that about? Was he playing some kind of game? Did he have some other motive? And he had dared to record her, and then use that recording against her, and then ask her to reimburse the hotel bill. The thought of the reimbursement sent a fresh wave of anger through her. Was the man obsessed with money? To be thinking about a few $100s at a time like this? And he didn't even try anything last night, she muttered to herself. Am I not attractive enough? Arg, I can't think about this. Stella buried her face in the pillow again, kicking her feet against the mattress in frustration. Regardless, he had leverage over her now. That damned video. Fire him. She didn't dare. What if he got angry and leaked the video? Her reputation would be ruined. She'd be a laughingstock. She had to keep him close. Use his job and his bonus to keep him quiet. And she had to reimburse him. The thought made her want to scream. Stella shot up in bed, taking several deep breaths to calm herself. She walked to the mirror and stared at the disheveled, red-faced, frantic-looking woman staring back. She forced herself to suppress the storm of emotions. Standing in the hotel hallway, I let out a long, slow breath. That was close. Way too close. The whole ordeal was nerve-wracking, but I had managed to keep my job and my dignity, and most importantly, I was getting reimbursed for the room. I couldn't help but chuckle thinking about the look on her face when she saw that video. So high and mighty all the time, but when she's drunk, all she wants is mango pudding. Hilarious. Of course, I wouldn't dare tell a soul. I valued my life. I just wondered how this little incident would change things between us. Would the Ice Queen finally cut me some slack? I shrugged. No point dwelling on it. Time to get back to the office. The daily grind awaited. What a life. I got back to the office in the afternoon, my butt barely hitting my chair before the intercom buzzed. I glanced at the caller ID, CEO's office. My stomach clenched. Here it comes. The reckoning. I took a deep breath and answered, my voice betraying my nerves. Ms. Cruz, you wanted to see me? There was a 2-second pause. Then her voice came through, sounding normal, but perhaps even colder than usual. The meeting minutes from yesterday. Are they done? Oh, yes. Yes, they are. I'll bring them right in. I frantically searched my computer for the file. Strange. She didn't mention last night. She didn't yell at me. She just assigned me a task. I walked to her office, printed minutes in hand, and knocked tentatively. She was looking down at a document and didn't look up when I entered, simply gesturing toward her desk. I tiptoed over, placed the file where she indicated, and snuck a glance at her. Her expression was neutral, her makeup expertly applied to hide any sign of last night's ordeal. She didn't even make eye contact. It's here, Ms. Cruz, I whispered. MHM, she grunted, still not looking up. You can go. I practically flew out of there. Back at my desk, I was still baffled. Was that it? She wasn't going to bring it up. Had health frozen over. For the rest of the day, I was on high alert, but in a weirdly confused state. Stella was still Stella. Her instructions were concise, her standards impossibly high. But the deliberate, personal attacks seemed to have lessened. She no longer seemed to be watching my every move, waiting for me to screw up so she could pounce. I made her coffee a little too weak, and she just took a sip, frowned slightly, and said nothing. I missed a small detail in an email summary, and she just corrected it with her pen and handed it back without a single icy comment. While I brought a document in, she would even occasionally say a quick "put it there" instead of completely ignoring my existence. The change was subtle, but for someone living under her constant high-pressure scrutiny, it was as obvious as the sun in the sky. It was like a hurricane being downgraded to a tropical storm. Still dangerous, but at least I could breathe. At lunch, I couldn't help but mention it to Kevin. "Kev, is it just me, or is Ms. Cruz not as terrifying today?" Kevin shoveled rice into his mouth. "You think? She made you redo that spreadsheet 3 times, remember?" "No, it's not that," I said, scratching my head. "It's the vibe. The murderous intent is gone. You think maybe my work is finally improving, and she's starting to respect me?" Kevin snorted. "Dude, wake up. She's probably just in a good mood for once." Or, "What did you do yesterday? Lay the flattery on extra thick." I shut my mouth. I couldn't tell him about last night, but I wondered if she was just afraid I'd leak the video. Later that afternoon, an urgent document needed her signature. I brought it in while she was on the phone, her tone serious. I stood by her desk, waiting. As she listened to the person on the other end, she casually reached out, took the document from my hand, scanned it, signed the bottom, and handed it back, all without missing a beat in her conversation. I stood there for a second, holding the signed paper, slightly stunned. In the past, she would have either glared at me to indicate I should wait, or covered the receiver to coldly snap wait. Today it was so seamless. Just before the end of the day, her line buzzed again. When I went in, she pulled an envelope out of her desk drawer and pushed it across the desk toward me, her expression unreadable. "Yesterday's expenses. Keep the change." I picked it up. It felt too thick. I opened it and saw a small stack of bills, definitely more than the hotel cost. "Ms. Cruz, this is too much," I stammered. The receipt was only for a couple hundred. She finally looked up at me, her eyes betraying no emotion. "That includes your Uber fare and a service fee. Take it. And while you're at it, delete the video." I pulled out my phone and deleted the file without hesitation. I was never going to use it to blackmail her anyway. A service fee? I got paid for taking care of her. I was in disbelief. I can't accept this, Ms. Cruz. I said, "Take it." She cut me off, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Just be more resourceful at your job. That's all that matters. You can go now." I walked out of her office, clutching the envelope, my head spinning. I counted the money back at my desk. It was an extra $500. Unbelievable. Stella Cruz gave me a service fee and told me to take it. Kevin leaned over. "Whoa, hitting the jackpot. Miss Cruz give you a bonus?" "Nah, just an expense reimbursement." I mumbled, quickly pocketing the cash. As I was leaving for the day, I gathered my courage as she walked past and said, "Have a good night, Miss Cruz." She paused for a fraction of a second and gave the faintest MHM in response. Watching her leave, I felt the extra $500 in my pocket and grinned. Maybe this iceberg wasn't completely unmeltable after all. It looked like my life here was about to get a whole lot easier. Of course, I wouldn't bet on it. She could be back to her usual frosty self tomorrow. But for today, at least, life was good. Definitely celebrating with an extra side of fries tonight. After the hotel reimbursement incident, I noticed Stella's vendetta against me seemed to have lost its fire. She was still stern, her words still lacked warmth, but she was no longer treating me like a mortal enemy she had to destroy. My work life was downgraded from hell difficulty to hard. Thank God for small miracles. One afternoon, she called me in her office and tossed a folder on her desk. "I'm going to Tech Park on the east side of the city this afternoon to inspect their new R&D center. Get the materials ready. We leave at 2. "Yes, Ms. Cruz," I said, picking up the folder, a little thrill running through me. A field trip. Finally, a break from being cooped up in the office. At 2 o'clock sharp, I followed her downstairs, where the company driver was already waiting. I smartly held the car door open for her, my hand shielding the top of the door frame. She glanced at me, said nothing, and slid into the back seat. I hurried around to the other side and got in the front. The ride was awkwardly silent. She spent the entire time either staring out the window or at her phone. I didn't dare speak, so I just sat stiffly, pretending to admire the scenery. The inspection went well. The people at the tech park were very enthusiastic, showing us all sorts of high-tech gadgets and talking about the Internet of Things and big data analytics. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I nodded along as if I did. Stella, on the other hand, was deeply engaged, asking sharp, insightful questions that cut right to the heart of the matter. On the way back, the sky had started to darken. I was wondering what to get for dinner when the car suddenly lurched, sputtered a few times, and then rolled to a stop on the side of the road. The driver tried to restart the engine, but it was dead. He scratched his head and turned around sheepishly. "Sorry, Miss Cruz. It seems like the car's broken down. It won't start." Stella frowned. "Can you fix it?" "Not here, I don't think. I'll have to call a tow truck," the driver said. She glanced out the window. We were in the middle of nowhere, a desolate stretch of road where you couldn't even hail a cab. She checked her watch, her frown deepening. Seeing the situation, an idea popped into my head. "Miss Cruz, why don't you call an Uber to get back to the office? I can stay here and wait for the tow truck." She considered it for a moment, then nodded, probably remembering she had something urgent to attend to. "All right." We both got out of the car. She stood on the side of the road, trying to hail a ride on her app, but since we were so far out, there were no cars available. The evening rush hour was starting, making it even harder. The wind was picking up, whipping her hair around her face. She kept checking her watch, her agitation growing. Watching her, an impulsive thought escaped my lips. "Ms. Cruz, why don't we ride divvy bikes back? I think I saw a station just up the road." The moment we got to the bike station, I regretted opening my big mouth. There was only one bike left. One. Single. Bike. Now what? Do I let her ride it herself? Or do I offer her a ride? Disclaimer. Giving someone a ride on a divvy bike is against the rules. But this is a story. Thank for your understanding. She turned and gave me a look that said, "Are you a complete idiot?" My face flushed. "Well, Miss Cruz," I stammered, "it could take forever to get an Uber out here. We could at least ride to the next train station or to a busier street. It's better than just standing here." She didn't answer, just glanced down at her phone again. The Uber app was still searching for a driver. She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself for something terrible, and looked at me. "See if the bike works." "Yes, ma'am." I unlocked the blue bike with my app and wheeled it over to her. She stared at it like it was an instrument of torture. "Ms. Cruz, you can sit on the back," I asked timidly. She shot me a glare. Then, with extreme reluctance, she awkwardly perched herself on the rear rack, her hands gripping the metal bar under the seat, her body as far away from mine as possible. "Hold on tight, Ms. Cruz," I said, then pushed off, the bike wobbling precariously. I pedaled as carefully as I could, terrified of dropping her. She sat behind me, her body rigid and silent. The road was a little bumpy, and every time we hit a pothole, she would let out a tiny gasp and her body would bump against my back. Her grip on the seat would tighten. The atmosphere was so awkward you could cut it with a knife. I felt like I had to say something. "Nice weather we're having, Ms. Cruz. That R&D center was pretty cool." "You're pretty light, Ms. Cruz. I can barely feel you back there." "Shut up and watch the road," she finally snapped from behind me. I immediately fell silent. Well, so much for that. After about 10 minutes of tense pedaling, we finally reached a more populated area. She immediately demanded to be let off. "Here's fine. I'll get an Uber from here." She practically leaped off the bike, quickly smoothing down her wind-blown clothes and hair. She was back to her usual aloof self, though the tips of her ears were a little red. She pulled out her phone, and this time, she got a ride instantly. While we waited, we stood on the sidewalk, neither of us looking at the other, the silence thick and heavy again. Suddenly, she spoke, her voice still flat, but a little faster than usual. "Today, you were resourceful. You can expense the transportation costs." I was stunned. "Huh? Expense? You want me to expense the $1.50 for the divvy bike?" She shot me a look that clearly said, "Have you lost your mind? Your Uber fare, from here, and the cost of the car service, expense it all." Oh, right. "Yes, of course. Thank you, Ms. Cruz." I nodded quickly, thinking to myself, $1.50 is still money. Just then, her Uber arrived. As she opened the door, she paused and looked back at me, hesitating for a second before saying quickly, "Be safe on your way back." and get the summary of today's visit to me by tomorrow morning." Then she slammed the door, and the car drove away. I stood there, watching the taillights disappear, still processing what had just happened. Did she just tell me to be safe? Did the Ice Queen just show a flicker of concern for me? I pushed the divvy bike, a goofy smile spreading across my face. It was just a throwaway line, but compared to her usual threats of cutting my bonus or firing me, it was a quantum leap. That bike ride was totally worth it. It solved our problem and maybe even earned me a few brownie points. Now, if only I didn't have to pedal all the way back by myself. The life of a working stiff. Slowly but surely, things began to change. At work, she was still strict, and she'd still call me out on my mistakes, but the icy daggers in her voice were gone, replaced by a more matter-of-fact criticism. Occasionally, and I mean very, very occasionally, she would even consider one of my suggestions. Like the time we were in a meeting discussing a new marketing campaign. Everyone had had their say, and on a whim, I quietly added, maybe we could add some kind of interactive giveaway. Young people are really into that stuff. The conference room fell silent. Everyone, including Stella, turned to look at me. My stomach dropped. I'd overstepped. Here comes the firing squad. She stared at me for a few seconds, then turned to the head of marketing. "What Leo said, look into it. Draw up an alternative proposal, and let's see how it performs." I was floored. She had actually listened to me. Even if it was just looking into it and an alternative, for me, it was a monumental victory. After the meeting, Kevin nudged me with his elbow. "Dude, you're giving the boss suggestions now. Moving on up." I just shrugged. Nah, just spitballing. But inside, I was beaming. Another time, I was making her coffee and got distracted, and the water was a little too hot. I brought it to her, my heart pounding. She took a sip, paused, and then said, "A little cooler next time." That was it. She didn't make me remake it. She didn't lecture me about not paying attention. I quickly nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Got it." It was these small moments, piling up one by one, that made me feel like the iceberg was finally starting to melt. At least I didn't have to live in constant fear of being frozen solid. The company organized a team-building retreat at a resort in the suburbs. That evening, at the group dinner, the atmosphere was relaxed and everyone was drinking. Stella had a few glasses of wine after being toasted by several executives. There was a faint blush on her cheeks, but she seemed perfectly lucid. After dinner, people started wandering back to their rooms in small groups. I was joking around with Kevin when I noticed Stella walking ahead by herself, her steps a little unsteady. I instinctively picked up my pace and caught up with her. "Miss Cruz, are you all right?" I asked. She turned, her eyes a little unfocused. She waved a hand dismissively. "I'm fine, just a little dizzy." Her words were slow, tinged with a softness I'd never heard before. "Is she drunk again?" I wondered. She didn't seem completely gone, though. "Let me walk you back to your room," I offered. This resort was huge. I didn't want her getting lost. She didn't refuse, just gave a small nod. "MHM." We walked side by side in silence. The cool night breeze rustled the trees. She shivered slightly. As we walked, she suddenly spoke, her voice soft, almost to herself. "Leo, you're really annoying sometimes." My heart sank. Here we go again. "Miss Cruz, what did I do wrong this time?" I asked sheepishly. She didn't answer my question, instead continuing her disjointed monologue. "But you're better than some people." "Oh, what people?" I was confused. That night, her voice dropped to a mumble. "If it wasn't for you, it could have been much worse." It clicked. She was talking about the night at the hotel when Wallace was harassing her. I felt a surge of pride, mixed with a little embarrassment. "Hey, it was nothing, Miss Cruz. You're my boss. I couldn't just stand by and watch someone harass you." She stopped walking and turned to face me. The path was dimly lit, and I couldn't quite make out her expression, but I could see the light glinting in her eyes. She started to say something, then stopped, sighing. "Forget it. You've probably forgotten anyway." "Idiot." There was again. Why was she always calling me an idiot? We reached her room. She took out her key card, but didn't open the door right away. She just stood there, head down, as if psyching herself up. Suddenly, she looked up, her gaze intense, her tone serious, almost desperate. "Leo, I think I'm starting to—" Before she could finish, her body swayed, and she slumped forward, falling right into me. I was so startled, I barely caught her. Miss Cruz. Miss Cruz, what's wrong? She was limp in my arms, her eyes closed, her breathing even. Had she fallen asleep? Now, she couldn't have picked a worse time. She was in the middle of a sentence. Starting to what? I was both exasperated and amused. I half carried her to the door, swiped her key card, and helped her inside, laying her down on the bed. I took off her shoes, pulled the covers over her, and stood there, looking at her passed-out form, my mind racing. Starting to what? Starting to hate me? Or starting to something else? I muttered to myself in frustration. Seriously, who taught you to stop talking mid-sentence? The suspense is killing me. But she was obviously not going to answer. I sighed, poured her a glass of water, and left it on a nightstand, adjusted the AC, and quietly let myself out. On the way back to my own room, I couldn't stop thinking about her unfinished sentence and the complicated look in her eyes. What on earth was going on inside that beautiful, icy head of hers? After the retreat, I couldn't shake the feeling that Stella was looking at me differently. I couldn't put my finger on it, but the chill was gone. Sometimes I'd even catch her staring into space, lost in thought. But the moment I asked a work-related question, she'd snap right back into CEO mode. I'm not good with suspense, and my curiosity was killing me. What was she going to say that night? Starting to what? Hate me? Tolerate me? Or something else? But I didn't have the guts to ask. What if the answer was starting to hate you? That would just be awkward. One night, I was sprawled on my couch, playing video games when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It was Stella. She had never, ever called me after work hours. My hand fumbled, and I almost dropped the phone. Hello, Miss Cruz. The background on her end was noisy. Her voice was slurred and sounded like she was on the verge of tears. Leo, where are you? My stomach lurched. Was she drunk again? I'm at home, Miss Cruz. What's wrong? Are you at a work dinner? MHM. Drank. A little. Her tongue was thick. They all ganged up on me. They're mean. A strange tightness formed in my chest. Where are you? I'll come get you. I don't know. Someplace. Call the Velvet Lounge. She named a well-known upscale bar. Stay right there. Don't move. I'm on my way. I hung up, grabbed my jacket, and bolted out the door, calling an Uber as I ran. Who were these assholes forcing her to drink? Didn't they know she was a lightweight? I found her at the bar, slumped over a table in a dark corner, a collection of empty glasses in front of her. I rushed over. Miss Cruz, are you okay to leave? She looked up, her eyes red and hazy. When she saw me, a goofy grin spread across her face. Leo, you came. That's so nice. Oh boy, she was hammered. Come on, I'll take you home. I tried to help her up. She wouldn't budge, instead grabbing my arm and starting to ramble. Leo, I'm going to tell you a secret. What secret can we talk about in the car? I just want to get her out of there. No, right now, she said, her voice suddenly loud, drawing a few stairs. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. That night, at the retreat, I didn't finish my sentence. I was too embarrassed. I froze. What night? The team building night. Her gaze was unfocused. The truth is, I wasn't that drunk. My brain short-circuited. Not that drunk. So she faked fainting in the unfinished sentence. She leaned in close, her breath smelling of cocktails, and whispered in my ear I was going to say, I think I'm starting to like you. I was paralyzed. All the blood in my body rushed to my head. Like me, Stella Cruz, the woman who criticized me, threatened to cut my bonus, and terrorized me daily. Was I hallucinating? After dropping that bomb, she seemed to run out of energy. Her head lolled to the side, and she slumped against my shoulder. Idiot, took you long enough to figure it out. She mumbled, then went silent, apparently having passed out. I stood there, feeling like I'd been struck by lightning. Like me. For real? Was this some new, elaborate form of torture? Was she telling the drunken truth, or just messing with me? I looked down at her sleeping face, so vulnerable against my shoulder, my mind a chaotic mess. But first things first, I had to get her home. I managed to get her into an Uber, but once again, I couldn't get an address out of her. So back to the old routine. I found a hotel. I checked us in, got her to the room, and put her to bed. I was an old pro at this by now. Took off her shoes, tucked her in, left her some water. When I was done, I sat in the chair by the bed, staring at her, my thoughts in a tangle. She liked me. What was there to like? My inconsistent coffee-making skills, my flawed email summaries, my ability to give her a ride on a divvy bike. Her taste was unique. As I was lost in thought, she rolled over, her eyes fluttering open. Leo, why are you still here? Oh, I was just making sure you were okay, I said quickly. She reached out and grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Don't go. Stay with me. My heart skipped a beat. Miss Cruz, you're drunk. You should get some rest. I'm not drunk, she mumbled, and then she pulled. Caught completely off guard, I lost my balance and tumbled onto the bed. Miss Cruz, we can't. I yelped, trying to scramble up, but she wrapped her arms and legs around me like an octopus. You're not allowed to leave, she whispered, burying her face in the crook of my neck, her breath warm against my skin. I like you. You can't run away. My entire body was rigid. I was afraid to move. Could she feel my heart hammering against my ribs? Miss Cruz, you're really going to regret this in the morning. I made one last, feeble attempt at reason. She lifted her head, her eyes hazy, and then she leaned in and kissed me. It was quick, a soft, alcohol-tinged press of her lips against mine. And then it was over. I was completely petrified. She looked at my stunned face and seemed pleased, a small smile playing on her lips. She snuggled back against my neck and whispered, There, you mine now. And then she was still, her breathing deep and even. I lay there, pinned beneath her, my mind a complete blank. It took a long time for me to come back to reality. I looked down at the woman in my arms, and all my doubts and uncertainties were washed away by a huge, unreal wave of happiness. To hell with it. I'd deal with the consequences tomorrow. Even if she woke up and killed me, it would be worth it. I carefully shifted my arm to hold her more comfortably, and then I closed my eyes. Forget about bosses and assistants. Forget about bonuses and being fired. Tonight, I was officially off the market. The next morning, I was awakened by sunlight and suffocation. I opened my eyes to see Stella's face inches from mine. She was wide awake, her eyes blazing, and one hand was clamped firmly over my mouth. MMPH. MMPH. I panicked, struggling against her. She saw I was awake and yanked her hand back as if she'd been burned, scrambling to the far side of the bed. She wrapped herself in the comforter, leaving only her eyes visible, which were filled with a lethal combination of shock, fury, and murderous intent. Leo. Her voice was muffled and shaky from behind the comforter. What? What did you do to me? I clutched my chest, gasping for air. She had almost smothered me. Miss Cruz, calm down. I didn't do anything. It was you last night, you. Shut up, she shrieked, grabbing a pillow and hurling it at me. You took advantage of me when I was drunk. You're disgusting. I caught the pillow, my heart breaking with injustice. I didn't. It was you. You said you liked me. You wouldn't let me leave, and you kissed me. The last part came out in a rush, my own face turning red. Stella froze. Her eyes widened. Her face went from pale to beet red in seconds. You're lying. That's impossible. I would never. Her voice trailed off as her eyes darted back and forth, clearly trying to piece together fragmented memories. It seemed she really had blacked out. I seized the opportunity, holding up 3 fingers. I swear on my life, Miss Cruz, if I'm lying, may lightning strike me dead. You even said, You're mine now. At those words, she let out a strangled gasp and pulled the comforter completely over her head, curling into a tight ball. A muffled, horrified groan came from beneath the blankets. Ark, stop talking. I stood awkwardly by the bed, unsure what to do. After a long, tense moment, the comforter was slowly lowered. She checked to make sure her clothes were still on, and some of the murderous intent faded from her eyes. She stood up, tried to regain her CEO composure, but her red face and evasive eyes gave her away. We stood facing each other, the silence in a room so thick you could build a house with it. Last night, she finally said, her voice stiff. Forget it ever happened. What? I blinked. Forget it. Yes, she glared at me. Pretend it never happened. Don't mention it. Don't think about it, and definitely don't tell anyone. Or else you'll cut my bonus, fire me, and make sure I never work in this city again. I recited my lines perfectly. She was taken aback for a second, then grunted in annoyance. Exactly. She grabbed her purse and started for the door, walking like a malfunctioning robot. As she was about to leave, I don't know what possessed me, but I blurted out, "Ms. Cruz, the reimbursement." She stopped dead in her tracks and turned to look at me in disbelief. What? I scratched my head, feeling a little embarrassed, but pressing on. The room, and my Uber fare. You see, this time was also because you were drunk that. Stella's expression was a priceless mixture of wanting to scream and wanting to laugh. She finally managed to suppress both and squeeze the words out through gritted teeth. Give me the receipt. I quickly handed her the crumpled receipt I had prepared. She snatched it, stuffed it in her purse without looking, and pulled open the door. Just before she left, she paused, her back still to me, and said, her voice barely a whisper, "Don't be late this afternoon." Then she slammed the door and was gone. I stood there, a slow grin spreading across my face. Forget it. Not a chance. And she didn't seem that angry, did she? Stella practically fled the hotel room. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, she sagged against the cool wall of the hallway, gasping for breath. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, a wild, chaotic rhythm. Her face was so hot, she felt like she could fry an egg on it. The icy composure she had struggled to maintain moments ago now shattered into a million pieces. She couldn't even bear to think about the stupid things she had said and done in that room. Reimbursement. She had actually taken that damned receipt from him and told him not to be late this afternoon. Oh, God. How had her brain, under so much stress, managed to string together those two completely unrelated sentences? She glanced nervously down the empty hallway, terrified someone might see her in this flustered, blushing state. She slapped her cheeks a few times, trying to cool them down, but it was no use. What she had done last night, or rather, this morning, fueled by the dregs of alcohol, had her cringing so hard her toes curled, confessing her feelings, initiating a kiss, clinging to him like an octopus. Stella Cruz, you're finished. Your Ice Queen CEO persona has been utterly demolished. What would Leo think of her? That she was desperate, forward, thirsty. And after all that, all he did was hold me, she thought, a fresh wave of mortification washing over her. Am I really that unappealing? Arg! She screamed internally, burying her face in her hands. The next second, she snapped her head up and forced herself to stand straight. No, she couldn't stand here falling apart. She had to leave. She took a deep breath, tried to regulate her breathing, and summoned the authoritative air she wore at the office, even as her heart continued to pound. She strode toward the elevator, her steps quick and a little too forceful. The mirrored walls of the elevator showed her reflection. Hair slightly messy, lipstick smudged, and cheeks an impossible shade of red. She fumbled in her purse for her compact and lipstick, her fingers trembling slightly as she tried to fix the damage. Calm down, Stella. Calm down. She chanted to herself in the mirror. It's not a big deal. So you slept with a subordinate. No, not slept with. It was an accident. And we only slept in the literal sense of the word. Even she wasn't convinced. The look in his eyes when he woke up, that wide-eyed surprise mixed with, was that a hint of delight? And the way he had stammered about the reimbursement. Thinking about the reimbursement made her want to laugh and cry at the same time. The sheer awkwardness of it all somehow diluted her shame. That idiot, to be thinking about money at a time like that. He was consistently broke, at least. The elevator dinged, arriving at the lobby. She immediately wiped all expression from her face, pulled out her phone, and pretended to be answering emails as she marched across the lobby and out the front door. What now? Fire him? The thought was immediately dismissed. No, that would make her look petty, like she couldn't handle the situation. And besides, she didn't really want to. No, she meant she didn't have a valid reason. Pretend nothing happened. That ship had sailed. She had personally blown that ship up with a torpedo. That left. Only one option. Dinner tonight. Yes, dinner. It would be a chance. For her to give him a chance. In herself. To see if he had any other qualities besides being dumb and poor. And we can discuss work. She thought fiercely, her internal justification kicking in. Yes, it's a work dinner. Purely professional. Not a date. If he was late, if he acted in any way that displeased her, if he dared to tell anyone about what happened, she would cut his bonus. Yes, cut his bonus. The familiar threat was comforting, making her feel like she was back in control. But the slight upward twitch of her lips and a glimmer of anticipation in her eyes, which she herself failed to notice, told a very different story. I arrived at the office that afternoon, my stomach in knots. I sat at my desk, sneaking glances at her closed office door. She didn't come out all day. Just before 5, the intercom buzzed. I jumped. It was her voice back to its usual cool, professional tone. "Leo, come in for a moment." I took a deep breath and walked in, ready for anything. She was looking down at a file, not at me. She gestured with her chin towards a thick folder on her desk. "This project. I want you to handle it. I need a preliminary proposal by next week." "Yes, Ms. Cruz." I picked up the folder and turned to leave. "Wait," she said. My heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment of truth. She finally looked up, her expression neutral, but the tips of her ears were red. She slid a piece of paper towards me. "Sign this." I took it. It was an expense report for the exact amount of the hotel and Uber fares from the night before. Her signature was already at the bottom. I blinked, then quickly signed it. "Thank you, Ms. Cruz." I clutched the report and the folder, ready to make my escape. "Also," she said again, her eyes fixed on her computer screen, her fingers typing away as if it were an afterthought. "Dinner tonight, to discuss the project details." My head snapped up. She seemed to feel my stare because her typing faltered for a second. Without looking at me, she added impatiently, "That new diner downstairs. 6:30. Don't be late." Then she waved me away. I walked out of her office, the expense report and folder in my hands, still in a daze. Kevin leaned over. "What's wrong? Did she yell at you again?" I looked at the signed expense report in my hand, then thought about what she had just said, and a wide grin spread across my face. "Nope," I said, slapping the paper down on Kevin's desk and puffing out my chest. "I got a date tonight. You're on your own for dinner." Kevin stared at me, completely baffled. "A date? With who? What's going on?" I ignored him, whistling a cheerful tune as I went back to my desk. It seemed the iceberg had well and truly melted. It was still a little chilly, but I think spring was finally here. The dinner, however, was incredibly awkward. We were at the new diner downstairs, a place where nothing on the menu cost more than $20. Stella, in her expensive business suit, looked completely out of place sitting on a plastic chair. For the entire project discussion, we barely discussed the project. She told me to order, then just watched as I nervously picked a few of the daily specials. The food came, and she barely touched it, poking at a piece of broccoli with her fork, her eyes occasionally flicking up to meet mine before quickly looking away. I was so on edge I could barely eat. My mind was just replaying the events of the last 24 hours. What did she want? This was more nerve-wracking than being yelled at. I tried to break the silence. "Ms. Cruz, the roast chicken is pretty good. MHM, I can have the data for the project compiled by tomorrow morning." "Okay. Do you want to order anything else?" "No." The conversation was dead on arrival. When we were finally done, I rushed to pay the bill. She didn't argue, just stood quietly to the side. When I turned back, she was watching me with a complicated expression. "Let's go," she said, leading the way out. I followed her. The night air was cool and refreshing. We walked side by side back to the office building to get her car, the silence between us thick enough to freeze. Down in the underground garage, she walked to the driver's side of her car, but didn't open the door. She turned and leaned against it, looking at me. My stomach dropped. Okay, this is it. The final showdown. Whatever it is, just get it over with. The garage lighting was dim, and I couldn't quite see her face, but she seemed nervous. Her breathing was a little shallow. Then she spoke, her voice sounding strangely faint. "Leo, I think I'm a little drunk." I blinked. "Huh? But you didn't drink anything. We had burgers and milkshakes." She seemed not to hear me, continuing as if in a daze, her voice taking on a soft, slurred quality. "My head is spinning. I can't stand up straight." And then her body swayed, and she actually started to fall towards me. I instinctively reached out and caught her. "Ms. Cruz, are you okay? Are you really dizzy? Should I take you to hospital?" She leaned against me, her head tilted up, her eyes wide and watery, her cheeks flushed. I would later realize she was holding her breath. She gave a silly little smile. You look a lot like that idiot, Leo. I was speechless. This was the most sudden case of drunkenness in human history. And I am Leo. Ms. Cruz, snap out of it. It's me, Leo, I said, panicked, trying to shake her awake. But she wrapped her arms around my neck, pressing her body against mine, her voice dropping to a whisper that tickled my ear. Idiot, I like you. My brain blue-screened. Like me? Again, is this another act? Before I could process it, she stood on her tiptoes, and her soft, warm lips were on mine. Boom! My mind exploded like a firework. All the blood in my body rushed to my head. Her kiss was clumsy, urgent, and tasted like a sweet vanilla milkshake. I was so stunned I forgot how to move. A few seconds later, she pulled away, her cheeks a deep crimson, her eyes hazy as she panted for breath. There, she gasped, as if it had taken all her strength. This time, it's for real. Without waiting for my response, she turned, yanked open the passenger door, and shoved me inside. I stumbled into the seat, completely caught off guard. She slid in right after me, onto my lap, and slammed the door shut. The small space was instantly filled with her scent and the lingering warmth of her kiss. She straddled me, cupping my face in her hands, her forehead resting against mine. Her voice was trembling, but clear, all pretense of being drunk on. Listen to me, Leo. I like you. You're not allowed to say no. You're not allowed to laugh at me. And you're definitely not allowed to tell anyone. Or else. She paused, as if trying to think of a sufficiently terrifying threat, and then said fiercely, or else I'll cut your bonus for the rest of your life. I looked at her, so close to me, my heart about to beat out of my chest. A massive, overwhelming wave of joy and disbelief washed away all my reason and hesitation. To hell with bosses and assistants. To hell with bonuses. I wrapped my arms around her waist, flipped her onto the seat beneath me, and kissed her back hard. MMPH. She let out a surprised squeak, but quickly melted, her arms winding around my neck. Her response clumsy, but passionate. The garage was silent except for the sound of our ragged breaths and pounding hearts. I don't know how long we stayed like that, but when I finally pulled away, we were both breathless. We looked at each other, and then, at the same time, we both started to laugh. She was smiling, her eyes crinkling, her cheeks still flushed. She playfully punched my chest. You jerk. You scare me. Seeing her like this, so unguarded and beautiful, my heart melted. I leaned in and kissed her again. Ms. Cruz, your acting skills could use some work. She glared at me. Who was acting? I was drunk. Milkshake drunk. Is that not a thing? It is now. I laughed, pulling her closer. But cutting my bonus for life? That's a little harsh. You got to at least give me an allowance. She snuggled against my chest and huffed. We'll see how you behave. Boyfriend. Hearing the word boyfriend was the sweetest thing I had ever heard. I held her even tighter. Oh, she said suddenly, pulling back to look at me seriously. Tonight's dinner, in the hotel from last time. Remember to get the receipts. You can expense them tomorrow. I just stared at her. Yep, that was still my Stella cruise.